When Jaguar Wright starts talking, Hollywood stops breathing. It is almost like a ritual at this point. Her words drop, and the industry trembles. She has already set fire to the reputations of moguls like Diddy and Clive Davis, but this time, she is pointing her finger straight at the royal couple of music, Beyoncé and Jay-Z. Her claim? That Blue Ivy's birth story is not what we were told. And suddenly, the internet is whispering again, could Jaguar actually be right, again? Because let us not forget, the last time she opened her mouth, people laughed. They called her unstable, said she needed help. But years later, when the lawsuits, the testimonies, and those disturbing documentaries about Diddy began surfacing, the laughter stopped. The same voices that mocked her went silent. Now, when she mentions Beyoncé's name, the internet holds its breath. Comment sections light up. Reddit threads explode. Twitter timelines start vibrating with theories. People are saying, wait, what if she is telling the truth again? Let us go back, 2011. The Carters ruled the world. Beyoncé was glowing, unstoppable, untouchable. Her MTV VMA performance was meant to be the fairy tale moment of her career. The music stopped, she unbuttoned that glittering jacket, smiled at the audience, rubbed her stomach, and the world erupted. Jay-Z was jumping in the crowd, Kanye was clapping like a proud brother, and cameras flashed like fireworks. That night, Beyoncé's unborn child became Hollywood royalty before she even took her first breath. But then came the clip, the one that would haunt her for years. An Australian talk show. Beyoncé, radiant as ever, sits down, and the moment she leans forward, her stomach folds. It collapses. The internet froze. Within minutes, the clip was everywhere. People slowed it down, zoomed in, replayed it frame by frame like detectives solving a crime. What they saw did not look like a natural baby bump. It looked like a balloon deflating. Enter Jaguar Wright, and her accusations take the story from bizarre to chilling. She claims that Kathy White's sudden death, which happened just weeks before Blue Ivy's birth, was not a coincidence. Kathy, a young and healthy woman, collapsed and died under what Jaguar describes as timed circumstances. The official report said aneurysm. Jaguar said cover-up. Her words hit like thunder, you do not just die like that, not when you are connected to billionaires with secrets. And that was all the internet needed. Within hours, conspiracy channels began dropping investigations. They pulled up Kathy's photos, matched timelines, linked flight records, even compared Beyoncé's public appearances to Kathy's final weeks. One YouTube channel slowed down the collapsing belly clip to half speed and froze the frame, zooming in and whispering, there. Right there. That is not natural. They made charts, comparisons, and theories about fake pregnancies, surrogates, and hospital leaks. Reddit turned into a digital courtroom. Twitter became a crime scene. For many, this was not gossip anymore, it was evidence. For others, it was pure madness. But why did the world believe it? Why did something that started as online noise evolve into a 10-year urban legend? The answer lies in Beyoncé's image, too perfect, too controlled, too divine. She rarely speaks. She never breaks character. Every movement, every word, feels choreographed by destiny itself. And when a celebrity becomes that flawless, the public begins to itch. Silence starts to feel suspicious. Every gap in her story becomes a blank the internet feels entitled to fill. And the truth is, society has a cruel fascination with powerful women. When a woman rises too high, people do not just admire her, they test her. They tear her down, looking for cracks in her crown. They cannot believe she is that perfect, that untouchable, without some hidden darkness keeping her there. So they invent it. They script her downfall. Beyoncé's pregnancy became the internet's favorite case file. Her dresses? Analyzed. Her poses? Dissected. Her silences? Interpreted like clues in a murder mystery. And when she finally spoke, when she looked into the camera in her documentary Life Is But a Dream and cried about losing her first child, even that moment of raw humanity divided the world. Some said, see? She is real. Others sneered, that is just damage control. By then, it was no longer about truth. It was about myth. Beyoncé's story had become folklore in real time, half tragedy, half conspiracy, completely unforgettable. And Jaguar Wright? She had lit the match and walked away. Because that is how these Hollywood fires burn, quietly, invisibly, until someone like Jaguar whispers a name, and suddenly, the smoke turns into headlines, the internet loses its mind, and the line between reality and rumor disappears forever. Years passed. The world moved on, or at least, it pretended to. Then, like a storm returning to the same coastline, Jaguar Wright came back. Louder. Sharper. And this time, she was not just exposing industry secrets, she was dismantling legacies. She spoke of powerful men, secret circles, and rituals behind fame. Her live streams were messy, chaotic, but hypnotic. And when she dropped Beyoncé's name, everything stopped. This was not just another gossip session. Jaguar did not merely suggest that Blue Ivy's birth was fabricated, she painted an entire picture of Hollywood collusion. She claimed the entertainment elite protected the lie, that Kathy White's death was orchestrated, not accidental. According to her, NDAs were signed in silence, payments were made under the table, and medical staff who knew too much were suddenly transferred or silenced. Now, let us be clear, there is no solid proof for any of these claims. None. But on the internet, truth and emotion do not weigh the same. And Jaguar? She knew how to make people feel something. Soon, hashtags began to rise from the digital ashes, hashtag surrogate theory, hashtag Beyoncé baby truth, flooding TikTok and YouTube timelines like wildfire. Creators began posting side-by-side comparisons of Beyoncé's maternity photos and those of other celebrities. Why, they asked, were there no hospital leaks? No paparazzi shots? No witnesses except her own team. It became less about logic and more about emotionally convincing doubt. As one viral TikTok put it, her motherhood came with receipts, but none of them matched. Fans fought back fiercely. They called the theories racist, misogynistic, and dehumanizing. They said no one ever questions male celebrities' fatherhood, so why were people obsessed with tearing down a black woman's motherhood? But skeptics doubled down, arguing that the Carters were too powerful, too well-connected, too insulated from consequence. When you own the narrative, one YouTube commentator said, you can rewrite truth itself. Even years later, when Beyoncé gave birth to twins Rumi and Sir, the internet could not resist. This time, people joked darkly, let us see the bump. The cruelty was thinly veiled as curiosity. Her body had become public property, her silence, a spectacle. Beyoncé never addressed the rumors again. She did not need to. Her silence became her defense, and her curse. Because in a digital world addicted to proof, silence does not end a rumor, it feeds it. And this is where the story cuts deeper than gossip. Fame does not just change how people see you, it changes what you are allowed to be. To fans, Beyoncé is a goddess. To critics, she is a puppet. Either way, she is not seen as human anymore. When someone becomes that iconic, the public starts looking for glitches in the perfection. A wrinkle becomes a clue. A pause becomes guilt. A blink becomes confession. That is the curse of the flawless. The more perfectly you live, the more desperately people want to find what you are hiding. And so, Beyoncé's pregnancy stopped being a personal journey and turned into a social experiment. It reflected our collective obsession with control, privacy, and power. She wanted to protect her child. The world demanded proof that the child was real. Over time, the theory mutated, growing heads like a hydra. People began claiming Blue Ivy's name stood for, born living under evil. Others said she was Illuminati royalty, a child chosen for ancient bloodlines. Absurd? Absolutely. But this is the internet, where disbelief becomes entertainment, and entertainment becomes belief. A single viral clip, a single comment with 1 million likes, can rewrite reality. And Beyoncé, the ultimate master of imagery, became the ultimate target for myth-making. Ironically, her perfection, her art, her silence, her power, became the proof people used against her. Because when you live your life like a movie, people stop believing you are real. They start seeing you as a puzzle. Something to decode. Something to expose. Beneath all the noise lies something heartbreakingly human. A woman who experienced loss. A mother who celebrated life. A human being accused of faking the very essence of motherhood. Strangers on the internet turned her pain into entertainment. They dissected her joy, her grief, her body, as if it belonged to them. The rumor became timeless, a ghost that refuses to rest. It resurfaces every few years, haunting headlines, whispered in comments, speculated in reaction videos. And maybe that is the real story here, not whether Beyoncé used a surrogate, but how the world refused to let her simply be a woman, a mother, a human being. Because Jaguar Wright may have reignited the fire. But the spark? That came from us, our hunger for scandal, our disbelief in purity, and our obsession with tearing down whatever shines too bright. Not long after Beyoncé's supposed delivery, tragedy struck. Kathy White was gone. It was not a slow decline, not an illness, not something anyone saw coming. One moment she was laughing, glowing, 28 and full of plans, and the next, silence. They said it was a brain aneurysm, a medical explanation that sounds neat on paper, but felt hollow to those who knew her. She had no warning signs, no stress, no pain. Nothing. Just, gone. The kind of gone that echoes. The kind that leaves a room haunted with questions that never get answers. Journalist Liz Crowan still remembers the unease. She had an interview scheduled with Kathy, something Kathy herself had requested. Liz said Kathy hinted she had a story to tell, something that had been eating at her for too long. She sounded nervous, but resolute, like someone who had finally decided to step out of the shadows and face the storm. Liz recalls thinking it was important. Life-changing, she said. Maybe even dangerous. But before that interview ever happened, before Kathy could speak a single word, she was found dead. Coincidence? Maybe. But to those who had seen her days before, the word coincidence felt like an insult. Then came Jaguar Wright, the storm no one saw coming. To some, she is chaos incarnate. To others, a truth-teller wrapped in pain. But to everyone, she is impossible to ignore. Jaguar says Kathy's death was not natural, that it was timed. According to her, Kathy White was not just a friend, not just an innocent woman, but someone who carried the wrong secret in the wrong world. Jaguar's voice shakes when she says it. She was pregnant with Jay-Z's child. And then she pauses, before adding something even darker. That child might have been Blue Ivy. It sounds insane, right? The kind of claim that would get buried in the corners of conspiracy forums and midnight Reddit threads. But then again, people said the same thing when Jaguar first started talking about Diddy. Back then, they called her unstable, bitter, delusional. Until the lawsuits appeared. Until the documentaries aired. Until the names she once whispered became the subjects of federal investigations. And now, people listen differently. Now, when Jaguar speaks, the internet does not roll its eyes, it leans in. Jaguar's theory is not just about Kathy White. She paints a pattern, a chilling, repeating rhythm of powerful men, silenced women, and deaths that never quite add up. She points at Diddy and Kim Porter, another woman whose death was explained away, this time as pneumonia. But even Kim's ex, I'll be sure, publicly said something that made people freeze, something ain't right. 3 words that rippled across the internet, breathing life into every conspiracy fire waiting to ignite. Jaguar connects that same energy to Jay-Z. In her words, these men don't lose women. They erase them. That sentence alone became legend. It was quoted in reaction videos, dissected in live streams, turned into TikTok edits that played over eerie music. Because it did not sound like a metaphor, it sounded like a memory. Jaguar talks like someone who has seen it. Who has walked through the dark corridors of fame where loyalty is currency and silence keeps you alive. Whether you believe her or not, you listen. Because somewhere between her chaos and her conviction, something feels disturbingly possible. And then there is Beyoncé herself, the woman at the center of this storm, singing like a ghost remembering her own secrets. Fans have replayed her lyrics with a new kind of intensity. In Haunted, she whispers, "It's what you do, it's what you see, I know if I'm haunting you, you must be haunting me." Back then, it sounded like art, abstract, poetic. But now, it sounds like a message from someone living with something unspeakable. Even Resentment, years older, raw with betrayal, hits differently when viewed through this lens. What if those songs were not just art? What if they were confessions disguised as music, the only way truth could survive in an industry built on secrets? The internet never forgets. Old photos of Kathy White resurfaced. People started comparing dates, scanning interviews, looking for overlaps between her rumored pregnancy and Beyoncé's timeline. And soon, that clip, came back. The Australian talk show. The folding belly. The moment that once broke the internet. People slowed it down again, frame by frame, like they were studying a piece of evidence from a cold case. They paused when her stomach appeared to bend, zoomed in, replayed, analyzed lighting, fabric, angles, everything. At first, it was dismissed as nonsense. But after Jaguar's claims? That same footage hit differently. Comment sections filled with disbelief. TikToks titled, "Watch this again, and tell me it's normal," spread like wildfire. And the strangest part? The debate was not about what the cameras showed, it was about what people wanted to believe. No one knows the truth. Maybe Jaguar is wrong. Maybe Kathy's death was an unfortunate tragedy and nothing more. But maybe, just maybe, she stumbled onto something she was never meant to see. Because Hollywood has always had a talent for making darkness look divine. And if there is one thing Jaguar Wright has proven, it is that even the most glamorous lights can cast the darkest shadows. Of course, logic says these are just coincidences. A fold in fabric does not equal conspiracy. A young woman's tragic death does not connect to a billionaire power couple's child. On paper, it is absurd, a web of what-ifs spun by people with too much internet and too little proof. But logic has never stopped a haunting. Because stories like these, they do not die. They linger. They resurface. They crawl back into the public's consciousness like unfinished business. Maybe it is all imagination. Or maybe, as some say, it is something older, a kind of collective intuition humanity has always carried. That strange whisper inside us that says, something is not right. Jaguar Wright has said it countless times, this industry is not about music. It is about power. And not the kind of power you see in awards or charts. She talks about a darker kind, one built on fear, silence, and ritual. According to her, people who try to speak out face the same fate: sudden accidents, quiet medical issues, and carefully worded obituaries. To Jaguar, Kathy White's aneurysm was just another chapter in that book of convenient tragedies. In one of her live streams, her voice broke mid-sentence as she said, "They call it natural causes because it's the easiest lie to sell." Every time a woman gets close to telling the truth, something happens. The internet replayed that clip 1,000 times. Because, deep down, people knew, history has seen this pattern before. Artists dying too young. Journalists disappearing. Producers exposed only after decades of silence. When money meets ego, morality disappears. And in an empire built on billions, truth is the first casualty. Jaguar's storytelling does not sound like gossip. It sounds like trauma, sharp, raw, and trembling at the edges. She talks like someone who has been burned alive by fame and still walks with the scars. Her words aren't polished, they are desperate. And that is why people believe her. Because when she cries on camera, when she screams into her phone, when she breaks mid-sentence and says, "You don't understand what they do to us," it hits something primal. Even skeptics lean in. Because even if only 1% of what she says is true, that 1% is enough to make the entire industry shiver. Kathy White's story became more than tragedy, it became symbolism. A warning. A ghost story for women who get too close to the truth. She was not a star. She was not famous. She was simply connected, and in Hollywood, that can be more dangerous than fame itself. Her name rarely appears in headlines now. The story was buried, softly, deliberately. But in the dark corners of the internet, Kathy White still breathes. In forums, reaction videos, and whispered voiceovers, her memory refuses to rest. Because mystery, especially when tied to the most untouchable couple in music history, has a way of living forever. If we are being honest, the public has always had a strange relationship with celebrities. We worship them like gods, and secretly hope to see them fall. We cheer for their success, then scroll endlessly for cracks in their perfection. And that is why stories like Kathy's grip people so fiercely. They remind us that behind every flawless smile is a cost, and behind every empire is a graveyard of secrets. Beyoncé and Jay-Z, as always, remain silent. They do not address rumors. They do not explain. They do not need to. Their brand is built on mystique, on being beyond the noise, above the chaos. But as Jaguar likes to remind her followers, silence isn't innocence. It's strategy. Maybe that is why this story refuses to die. It is not the accusation that haunts people, it is the silence that followed it. Because silence can mean peace or fear. And in an industry where truth can destroy careers or lives, silence often speaks the loudest. Even Beyoncé's own lyrics have not escaped the microscope. Songs like Heaven and Daughter have been picked apart like coded confessions. Lines like, "Heaven couldn't